What is up, everyone? Today I want to talk about the massive surge in volume and price that we just experienced with Bitcoin that completely overshadows the momentum that we saw last night. If you were watching last night, you saw this huge increase here. Well, it just looks like a blip on the radar when you compare it to this. So let's talk about what just happened. I made a video last night where I talked about this increase and I said how I didn't anticipate it holding. Now, the reason I said that was because there was a lot of volume on a red candle if you looked at it in the shorter term, and that suggests to me that there wasn't a whole lot of momentum to drive the markets higher. And we did in fact see the market start consolidating, and during this phase here where GDAX and Coinbase was down, they actually saw Bitcoin decline down to roughly 3730 or so. And so it was looking like I might have been actually correct. But then a massive news event came in and we saw this huge spike. Now, the massive news event is North Korea claiming that Trump's statements at the UN last week were a declaration of war. And you can see here that some of these news stories, and I've highlighted here 43 minutes ago, now it's going to be even older than that. I believe this is now going to be roughly 50 minutes ago at the time of recording this. These statements made by North Korea are very clearly the cause of the increase in Bitcoin. And you might be saying, how can you prove that? How can you illustrate that? Well, if you've watched a previous video on this channel, it's called, Is Bitcoin Replacing Gold? And in that video, we compare the returns of gold futures, Japanese yen versus the US dollar, and treasury yields in order to compare safe haven assets to Bitcoin. And what we found is that during times of absolute crisis, I shouldn't say crisis, but during times of geopolitical instability, Bitcoin behaves very similarly to gold and other safe haven assets. But you don't have to take my word for it, because I've got a chart here that illustrates it. Now, in this chart here, we are looking at gold futures, we are looking at the US dollar versus the Japanese yen, and we are looking at 10-year treasury yields, as well as the return in Bitcoin. And what's interesting about all of this is we saw Bitcoin spike very heavily here at about the same time as gold spiked, at the same time as we saw the US dollar depreciate against the yen, and at the same time as we saw treasury yields decline. So Bitcoin is increasing as a result of this declaration of war comment by North Korea. And the question becomes, does this fundamentally change my thesis from last night? In order to answer that question, we have to think back to what happened when North Korea launched a ballistic missile test over Japan and the effect on Bitcoin's price. Now, I go into a lot more detail in the video called Is Bitcoin Replacing Gold? And I'm going to show you a quick snapshot of it here. I included a graph that illustrated Bitcoin breaking out above $4,500, and the main catalyst here was the North Korean news headlines. And because of those headlines, we started to see Bitcoin go up, and then it exploded the following morning. So the question everybody should have right now is, are we going to see a similar situation? Now, the issue I have with that is we are not in the same level of a healthy market or hyped market as we were back when Bitcoin was trading at 4,400, trying to break above 4,500. Right now, we are in a general downtrend, and the overall atmosphere surrounding Bitcoin right now is not of a bullish nature. So this is a different scenario. And I'm going to be honest with you, unlike last night's video where I was certain we were going to see Bitcoin start to flatline or go down back to its previous consolidation phase, I'm not so certain now, because we haven't had an event like this happen while Bitcoin is in a general downtrend. We've had it when it goes in an uptrend, but we really don't know what's going to happen here. So one of two scenarios is going to happen. Either this causes a new plateau, in other words, Bitcoin starts consolidating around the 3,900 level, and then we might see it break out to the upside, or the second possibility is, because we're in a general downtrend right now, this is only a temporary blip, and we're going to start seeing factors that affect cryptocurrencies come back into play. Because let's be honest here, Bitcoin is not a macro play. US dollar versus the yen is a macro play. The gold futures is a macro play. The treasury yields are a macro play, but Bitcoin is not. So in the long term, what we are going to see is that cryptocurrency headlines are going to be the main influence on what affects Bitcoin's price. As to what actually happens over the next 24 hours is anyone's guess, especially if we see a positive headline. Any positive headline could push us above $4,000 very easily. I'm still not going to be jumping in because I don't anticipate any positive headlines, and I'm willing to take that risk of missing out. But I want to point that out to everybody now, that if you don't feel comfortable with that, then maybe you should consider investing now. This does change things because it could set a new level, and we are in uncharted territory now as opposed to where we were last night. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Leave a like, comment, and subscription, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching.